make sure that these people pay for what they have done to us.
Walls, grow some balls!
Walls, grow some balls!
Walls, grow some balls!
El pueblo presente!
El pueblo presente!
He was taken by ICE just the other day. Somebody say shame! Shame! They murder when they ignore calls from people who really need them.
I could not concentrate on what this old man was saying.
So, Democrat politicians are continuing to show that they think it's okay to run over ICE agents with their vehicles. They are, of course, continuing to provide material support for the domestic terrorists in Minnesota that are running over ICE agents with their vehicles, assaulting law enforcement, vandalizing and breaking into random hotel buildings, and that is now joined in by Representative Ilhan Omar today, who thought it was a bright idea to participate in one of these protests outside of the ICE facility, despite seeing how violent, especially last night, these have already become. But she wanted to show up to make it clear to everyone, first of all, we're going to continue and support the lie that this entire outrage is based on, the idea that an ICE agent just shot an innocent U.S. citizen for absolutely no reason, and to, of course, cheer on the very agitation and behavior that they are engaged in. And lastly, she even repeated the old stunt that we saw Democrats doing a ton of times last year, which is show up to an ICE facility, demand to be let in immediately due to your congressional authority. Sometimes they say no, and then they just sit there and whine and complain and say, ICE closed the doors on us. This is authoritarianism. How can you believe this? We just showed up and tried to break in. It's just so ridiculous. But anyways, I want to kind of demonstrate this here to you today, guys. So first, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. And that said, let us just show you exactly what happened here. So Ilhan Omar shows up to this ICE facility, where I'll point out in a second, we've already seen arrests made. She essentially came with her whole mob of protesters and then mysteriously was denied entry into this ICE facility. I don't know the exact reason. I'll speculate on that in a moment. Either way, to be honest, I don't really care. It's kind of hilarious. Yeah, don't let this idiot in. I mean, why would you do that after all? But anyways, take a listen.
Myself, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota's 5th District, along with Angie Craig, the Congresswoman for Minnesota's 2nd District, and Kelly Morrison, the Congresswoman for Minnesota's 3rd District, made an attempt to enter Whippley Center here in Minneapolis. We were initially invited in to do our congressional oversight and to exercise our Article 1 duties. When we made it in, it was with the authorization of someone who's been here for a really long time, who understood that we had a congressional duty to enter the building and to see the facility. Shortly after we were let in, 2 officials came in and said that they received a message that we were no longer allowed to be in the building and that they were rescinding our invitation to come in and declining any further access to the building.
That's hilarious. No, my favorite part is how the federal government wasted their time. That's so funny. Say initially you can show up and then be like, oh, sorry, you came out here for nothing. That's wonderful. Now, again, I don't know the exact reason that this happened, but if I were to guess, it could have something to do with the protest outside that she decided to participate in, engage in. Arguably, you could maybe make the case she brought that mob of people to the facility, and so it became a safety concern. Who knows? The other reason I've heard is that the new ICE facilities that are authorized under One Big Beautiful Bill basically do not have this congressional oversight whole rule going on. So in other words, they intentionally set it up so that stupid Democrats like Ilhan Omar, Maxine Waters, LaMonica McIver, many of those that you've seen, are no longer able to cause a gigantic scene at these facilities and interfere with immigration operations. Either way, again, it doesn't really matter to me, but let's keep listening to the garbage excuses she's about to provide for basically everything.
When we initially entered, I'll briefly describe what we saw. We were taken in to the monitoring center. We were able to see where people were brought in. We were informed that there are two planes that are taking off today, taking detainees out of this center into other detention centers outside within the United States. We did ask if those were deportation flights. We were told no. When we entered the detention center, we were able to observe about 20 people that were being detained there briefly. We also were told that there were showers we weren't able to see. We asked if there were hygiene products provided. They told us people are not held long enough to need those, which is insane because we've heard from people who have been detained here before. And so I will let my colleague.
Well, you just admitted that flights are actually going out of this center. So basically, this is a temporary holding place, right, for the long-term immigration detention, and to do the whole immigration case, they're flown out somewhere else. And now she's whining, oh, there's not enough hygiene products, but you just admitted the people there are temporary and they're being flown out today. They're being flown out today. So what on earth are you actually talking about here? They're basically just, whining about nothing. And by the way, let me just say, if you, for instance, go to another country and you get caught in the secondary screening, basically they think you're a terrorist or something, and they bring you in the room and they interview you, and sometimes they take your stuff, leave you there for hours on end. It's very customary. They don't even give you a shower, first of all, much less, oh, here are some hygiene products. You want some CeraVe? Like, it doesn't work that way, but I guess find a reason to make excuses about anything,
Colleagues also share their observation, but I will end with this. What happened today is a blatant attempt to obstruct members of Congress from doing their oversight duties. When we appropriate funds as members of Congress, we are expected by the public to do oversight because the public requires their money be used with transparency and accountability. And what happened today is ICE agents deciding that we were no longer allowed to fulfill our constitutional duties. I will turn it over to Congresswoman Angie Craig of Minnesota's 2nd Congressional.
Notice how she never tries to make the case that it's illegal what the federal government here did, because by at least my understanding, they are now allowed to turn away members of Congress. Now, Ilhan Omar can make the case, oh, we're trying to do oversight. But even then, oversight, you say? What oversight? All you do is lie about ICE, right? So, the argument is, oh, we want government transparency. We need to go in there in order to, show the world what's happening. And yet, every time they speak about ICE, they lie.
And when people are disappeared in the darkness, American democracy dies.
Congresswoman.
And it is really important for every single person in this country to understand that they are not only disappearing people who have committed crimes, who are in this country undocumented. They are disappearing U.S. citizens. They are disappearing people who have proper documentation, sometimes telling them that their documentations are wrong, keeping them for days upon days. We've also seen people be deported who have proper documentation yet to be returned to this country.
That's right.
This should not be allowed in a country that roots in itself in freedom and liberty. There is no freedom when you are being detained and your government is being turned against you. This should be appalling to everyone.
Yeah, well, that's just not true. It's completely made up. It's a lie. People are not being disappeared. U.S. citizens certainly are not being disappeared, nor are they being deported, except in cases of voluntary family unification. But I like to point out, that's Ilhan Omar's idea of oversight. When Democrats say they're exercising their congressional oversight, that's what they actually mean. Okay, we're just going to go, and by the way, because you can see right now, they're doing the same thing with the ICE shooting. Oh, we're going to see something, totally just freaking lie about it, and keep pushing that lie. And by the way, let me be clear about this. Not only do they know they're lying, they know how dangerous these lies can be. Okay? You cannot be ignorant or naive at that at this point. First of all, they interact with their voters all the time, considering it's their constituents. They know how insane these people are. They know how radical and mentally ill and terroristic so many leftists in this country are. And what are they doing? As we so often point out, right? It's the phrase stochastic terrorism. Don't say it directly, but push those buttons, keep inciting the mob. Why? Because they're just as guilty as the people who are, out in the streets, committing those very acts. And here is more proof of that. You see Ilhan Omar right after supposedly engaging in her quote-unquote oversight, right? Her oversight where she just lies all the time. Now on the ground with those very left-wingers in Minneapolis, and here she is encouraging the resistance, which I want to remind people we've already seen in Minneapolis has become, over the past several days, extremely violent, but here she is to cheer them on even more. They're the good guys, remember that.
You all have refused to back down. You all have decided that this resistance is not one that can be intimidated. We are showing the nation that regardless of what the tyrant in the White House believes, we know that we are here to stay, and this is our country. We are going to make a life here, and we are going to stand up for our neighbors here in Minneapolis. As many of you know, they came to terrorize, abduct, and deport Somali immigrants here in Minnesota. When they couldn't find any, because majority of us are legal residents and citizens, they decided to terrorize our Latino immigrants. You all have refused.
And if it couldn't get any more obvious, here you have a moment where CNN attempts to confront another one of these Democrat congresswomen on the similar rhetoric you've heard from Ilhan Omar, right? CNN asks, "You're calling ICE terrorists and goons and threatening them to stop effing with us," right? By the way, typical rhetoric. She's not alone. Democrat politicians speak like this all the time. They slander and call these people the craziest names, and then they lie and say they're disappearing people, they're abducting people. So CNN asked the question, right? Again, if you wanted to have a debate over this, do Democrat politicians know what they're engaging in? Are they intentionally trying to stoke violence? Well, CNN asks, this can incite violence against agents and put them in harm's way. What do you say about that? She responds by saying, quote, "I said what I said," doubling down on it.
And just real quickly, there are folks that are going to hear you say things like state-sponsored terrorism. You put out as a statement, literally, "Stop fucking with us," was your words. These are goons. And they'll say that is raising the temperature and actually puts some of this law enforcement officers in greater danger. What do you say to that?
I said what I said.
Okay.
She said what she said in response to the accusation that her statements may cause violence and terrorism against ICE agents and even more broadly, Trump supporters and right-wingers in this country. Well, there you have it. It's exactly what I've been saying about the Democrat Party in terms of not just crazy voters, but elected officials for months. I said they cheer this stuff, they're stoking it, they know exactly what they're doing, and now they're just admitting it publicly, right? Not even hiding it. You're starting to notice a pattern, right? The mask is coming off. Immediately after the Charlie Kirk assassination, a lot of Democrats tried to say, oh, we condemn violence, but then 2 seconds later, they're slandering Charlie Kirk. They used to not really want to be associated with communists. Now they're proudly celebrating protesters who these days are just bringing communist flags to the streets and not really caring all too much about it. And now, even when asked, hey, are you okay with stoking danger and violence toward ICE agents? Are you scared maybe of political violence? No. She said what she said. Mask off. There you go. That's a Democrat Party. So before maybe toward the midterms, any elected Democrats try to make the case, oh, we're not really like that. We're moderates. We're, sane and reasonable people. We're not scary radicals. Just keep these clips right here in mind. Again, she said what she said. Yeah, that's right. All right, but that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.